Good morning, Rexburg. Welcome to episode 20 of the Rexburg Hustle. We're excited to be with you guys here today. Guys, episode 20, this is going to be the last chapter in volume 1 of the Rexburg Hustle, The Untold Stories. So we're excited to be finishing off our very first book today. And we do have all the other episodes transcribed, and they will be headed out to their rightful owners soon. So we can get that book going, which is exciting. So
that is exciting. You know, as we do these shows, we give you the basic idea of what the stories are, but there's so many details behind the scenes that we don't get to share with you, and maybe that we don't even know. So as this gets built upon, boy, we're really excited to get this out to the public. I think it's going to be a great novel for Volume 1. And anyway, we're excited to learn more ourselves and bring it to you.
Yep, absolutely. Guys, today our show is brought to you by there's going to be, it's a big animal adoption event tomorrow that's going to be at the Cedar Ridge Animal Hospital here in Rexburg. And we'll probably touch a little bit more on that here in just a few minutes as we get into our interview today. But guys, over at the Cedar Ridge Animal Shelter, is it Animal Hospital or Animal Shelter?
The Animal Hospital.
Animal Hospital.
Animal Hospital from 10 till 12.
From 10 till 12. And guys, make sure you attend that. Again, we'll talk about that here in just a minute. And Travis, why don't you introduce our guest for today?
That's right. Today we have Officer Buzzell with us with the City of Rexburg. We're so excited to have him here because we hear a lot of stories about just different businesses and life stories and different things, which we'll hear some of that today too. But we want to talk to you today with Officer Buzzell about one of the areas of the police force that maybe doesn't get a lot of recognition and observance. So we're excited to learn more about this. But let me tell you a little bit more about Officer Buzzell. Officer Stephen Buzzell has always loved animals. Buzzell is the current animal control supervisor and runs the Rexburg Animal Shelter. He has worked for the City of Rexburg in charge of the animal shelter since 2003. That's quite a while. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Officer Buzzell has a background in computer programming, graphic design, landscape, and much more. He is often referred to as the everything else officer. That's terrific.
It's a cool title.
Yeah, it is a cool title, isn't it? He can just about do or see anything, it seems like animal control, design, flyers, building maintenance, social media, writing grants, blocking roads, and doing the landscaping at the animal shelter. He literally does everything, it seems like. He has a number of certifications and a lot of training in animal control fields. He has been an EMT, an instructor in bioterrorism, and a member of the CETF, the Certified Euthanasia Task Force, which is very interesting and very specialized. Yep. He's responsible for certifying and training other animal control officers in the state of Idaho, which is great. He has been published in animal control journals and has received multiple awards for excellence in law enforcement and even received commendations from Governor Butch Otter. That is fantastic. You really can do about everything. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, we're excited to have Officer Buzzell with us to talk to us about the animal shelter and different things, aspects of it, events, things that are coming up, and just help us to understand more. So, anyway, what is your background? Tell us some more about how this all started.
So, the joke I always refer to is that when I started as a patrolman, and then I really made the chief upset. Oh. That put me into animal control, and I've been stuck there ever since because he still hasn't forgiven me. The answer, though, is that I got started, and they asked me if I'd be willing to step into animal control. I absolutely love animals, and so it was like, yeah, absolutely. Once I was there, I just totally fell in love with it, and I've never had any desire to leave. So,
it's important to love what you do and have a passion for that. That's a critical element, and so that's great. That's great that you do that, and that you take a lot of care and interest in that.
And how long have you been doing that?
So I've been doing the animal control since I started, and so we're just under 16 years right now.
Okay, wow. Awesome. Great. So you're a regular veteran at it.
I think I got a couple years under my belt. But
oh, that's awesome.
I've met some older dogs at this job. But
there you go.
That's right.
I'm hearing the jokes go back and forth here.
That's right. Now, speaking of jokes, you referred right as we were walking into the studio. I think it was right as we were walking in from the pre-show into here. You were saying, guys, I'm actually a super dork.
Yep.
Let's get that one out of the way, and let's go over your super dorkness.
So I do everything from Dungeons & Dragons, computer games, miniature wargaming. I spend a lot of time working on I've got a basement that is completely full. I have, we start talking things like Warhammer. I have upwards of 3,000 or 4,000 models.
Wow.
And then I have like the entire Reaper line. So you have to be a dork to fully understand some of these things. But yeah, I can stand back and be proud in my dorkism. So
these are some of the. Show us what's on the screen here. Talk to us about that.
So that's one of the figurines I painted. That was actually kind of a test paint because this was just after I'd had my surgery and seeing if I could still paint. I had a pretty serious on-the-job accident and had lost the use of about half my body, lost the ability, about 50% of my feeling. And I still don't have a lot of the feeling from the neck down, but the paintings were something I wanted to test and see if I could still do, make sure that I hadn't lost that with the loss of the ability to feel my hands. So
that's incredible. Such detail. I mean, that's very time consuming, very detailed. And let's just point out, as Officer Buzzell just said, he had an on the job accident. He's sitting down in a chair right now. He's not really this short. I'm that short. He's not.
Well, I can.
But
here we go.
There we go.
Now we stand up.
Now it makes me look really short.
And they're cheating. They're standing on crates over here too. So.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
So we're glad that you're able to be with us and whatnot. So anyway, tell us more about your dorkism. Anything else you want to tell us
Dorkism.
about?
Well, I actually for quite a while I ran Dungeons and Dragons encounters within our community. So at the local game shop, I was the head DM that ran that for quite a few years. So
interesting.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So like I say, I'm uber dork.
That's all right.
We've all got something, and it's great. I think all of us have that hobby, that thing that just gets us excited about life, and it is great.
Yep.
That is just great. Wonderful.
Now, you said you're an uber dork, but you also have an uber important job in this community of running the animal shelter.
Yes.
I was fascinated to hear about all of the different aspects that go into it, the ratios of cats to dogs, and the some of the crazy stories. But let's first talk about why the animal shelter exists here in Rexburg and what your guys' goal is with that.
Mm-hmm. So, with the animal shelter, the best answer I always give is that it serves a dual purpose. Our function is to protect people from animals and to protect animals from people because we have things going both directions. We enforce ordinances based on Title VII of our city ordinance, which is our animal ordinance, and then I also deal with a lot of Chapter 25 of the Idaho Code, which is specific to dogs. So a lot of times people call us animal control, and I go, no, technically we're domestic animal control. We've got to put that little distinction in there. We do occasionally deal with things like when the moose gets into town. Had a really interesting one where we had a badger walking down Main Street, had crawled into one of the stores.
Oh my gosh!
Oh boy.
And
glad it wasn't our
there.
office.
We went in there and pulled it out of the store. And badgers are every bit as mean as they say they are.
I was going to just ask, how in the world do you put a noose around the neck of a badger, or what did you do to get
So
that?
with that one, what we end up using is a tool called a stab stick. It's basically a syringe on the end of a long pole, and I was able to give him a dose of tranquilizer. Once he fell asleep, he was a lot more pleasant to work with. So.
I'm sure. Interesting.
Now, you guys are you guys pretty close to capacity right now at the shelter?
We're sitting actually probably a little over capacity
Okay.
if it was not for my volunteers. There are 2 staff members at the animal shelter, and so that definitely has an effect on how many animals we could take care of because we're not going to get ourselves in a situation where we're caring for more animals than what we can properly provide care for.
Right.
I don't want to be the one that's going to be referred to as the animal hoarder. We want to make sure that when we have those animals, we're giving them the best care we can. I have a really great team of volunteers that works with us at the shelter. Some of them are dedicated. They'll put as much time in as a full-time person would, and they're helping us take care of the animals, finding homes for them, and just taking care of them, working on training. So we would be well past capacity for the 2 of us, but when we got our volunteers, that makes it so we can actually take care of a lot more.
That's great. I was just going to ask you, and you just barely touched base on it, because you are at capacity, the need for finding homes for these animals is pretty great. How do you do that? What's the process for that?
So with finding homes, it's going to be things like our adoption event that we're doing this weekend.
Right.
We're trying to reach out to people. We have a lot of presence on Facebook where we're putting things out. We try to even do like Twitter, reach out with social media to put pictures of our animals out there. If we're having a hard time getting adopted, we're going to reach out and we're going to put out videos of them as well. We work really hard on getting to know the personality of the animal so that way as we are giving them a description, it's a description that's not just a generic thing. It's something that's specific to that animal. If we say that this animal loves to play ball, we've been out there throwing a ball with him, and it's probably been 45 minutes or an hour before, we've had a volunteer out there tossing a ball for him, and like, yep, he loves playing ball. So
that is interesting that you actually invest the time into the animal to get to know it and to find that right home. This is quite interesting to me because you're not just trying to plop an animal just to get rid of it. You're trying to actually match it up with a family who will care for it, get to know it, that might blend in there. That is the extra level and extra step that I think is quite amazing that you're doing.
It helps a lot with our rescues too. Sometimes we can't get animal adopted out here, and when a rescue reaches out to us or when we reach out to a rescue, we've got a really good reputation with them. They will take animals from us because they know that we'll give them the good, we'll give them the bad. And I give that same thing to the people. If I know there's a problem with this animal, I'm going to try to let you know what's going on, because one of my philosophies is that if you know what the problems are, they're a lot easier to deal with than if you're discovering them.
Oh, yeah.
So
Fantastic.
Now, would you say that most animal shelters operate the same way that you guys do as far as the level of care that you give the animals? Because I always had the vision in my mind. When I was a kid, we'd go visit the animal shelter once in a while. You walk down the aisle and everybody's barking at you, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, these guys look miserable. But you kind of opened my eyes to a whole new side that, oh man, you guys take them for walks. You go out and you play with them. Is that typical of most animal shelters?
I think it's typical to what most animal shelters would like to do.
Okay.
Unfortunately, some of them, and I've been to some other shelters, and what happens is you just get to a point where there are so many coming in that you can't do it. The reason I'm able to do this is because across the span of a year, we're going to be working with about 700 animals.
Wow.
That's quite a few, but that means we're only going to have about maybe 20 at any given point in time on our average. That means that we do have the time we can spend working on those animals. A lot of other facilities, they're getting to a point where you're talking thousands of animals, and that means you've got hundreds at a time, and at that point in time, it's very hard to get to know them. So that's one advantage of being a small facility. I can try out new programs. I can keep what I like and toss out what I don't like.
Right.
And so we can make quick adjustments. We can make quick changes. So
now, I asked you this question earlier in the pre-show, too, about if you have a medical facility where you can spay, neuter, do those kind of services, and you said, well, not so much. We do have a doctor that can come in and do that.
Yep.
Right.
So it's limited on the surgeries. It has to be kind of an outpatient surgery. So there are occasions where we will have one of our local vets come in and do some cat neuters for us. But otherwise, what we are having to do is work with our local vets just the way any homeowner would. And so that's one of the hard things, because some facilities do have a vet on staff. They have their own medical facilities. And so we get a lot of people calling the shelter asking about decreased spay neuters. And it's like, no, we're paying the same prices that you guys are. It's just that when we get on the other end of it, the vet does give us a pretty good discount. But it's a case of, he's giving us a pretty good discount for the animals that are adopted through the shelter, because he wants to see them getting adopted just as much as we do.
Sure.
So
Fantastic. Okay.
Now, in the pre-show, we talked a little bit about how these animals are coming in, and you said about half of them are strays, and about half, which shocked me, about half are owner surrenders.
Yep. Yeah, so we do the owner surrenders as a courtesy. The strays we're doing as enforcing city ordinances, and then anything we're doing with the cats is as a courtesy. That's something that's sometimes hard for people to grasp, is that we're an animal shelter, but everything that we're doing with cats is totally a courtesy. This is not something we're required to. Idaho and City of Rexburg don't have laws specific to cats running at large or anything. And so anything we're doing with the cats is always just a courtesy. As far as that goes, though, about half of them do come in as owner surrenders. And what we kind of see there is it's everything from we break it down into either owner-related problems or animal-related problems. And so sometimes you have people that are moving and they can't keep the animal. Currently, we've got a couple in there that are there because the owner passed away. That's something that's a pretty serious medical condition that affects the owner's ability to take care of them. The other times we'll have animals that are in there because of their problems. There are problems with aggression. Maybe they don't get along with the other animals in the home. Maybe they don't get along with the children. Maybe they don't match the carpet anymore. There are different things. That's kind of a joke. We refer to that as an animal other when we get those answers. When we get those answers coming in, it's like, so this is why you're bringing the dog in. So I actually had probably one of the most interesting stories of an intake that we ever had, and it was, I would be safe to say it was crazy. We had a gentleman who brought a dog in, and insisted that we put it to sleep. So if somebody's insisting we put it to sleep, I mean, a lot of times I try to figure out why, because if it's a medical problem, yeah, I want to look at that, and we want to put that animal so it's not suffering. In this case, though, I started asking him questions, and the reason he wanted this animal put to sleep is because the dog would sit and watch his wife take showers.
Oh boy.
It was something. I think the kicker on it all was when his comment.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the kicker on it all was his comment of, it wouldn't be so bad if it was a female dog, but where it's a male dog, it just disturbs me.
They put door handles on for a reason. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
that's right.
Well, so you've had some real interesting experiences, and
Yep.
I don't want to go to the sensitive side too deeply, but I am curious, what is the more challenging, maybe the more difficult side of your job?
I think there's no doubt about it at all. The most difficult part of the job is the euthanasia. And it's not just the euthanasia, because there are times where that can be a blessing. You have an animal that's been hit by a car. You've got an old animal that's sick with cancer. To be able to help that animal to move on in a painless fashion, that is a real blessing. But the ones that are really disturbing are the ones that are coming in, and the only thing this animal ever did wrong is that somebody chose not to spay or neuter its parents. And we have to work on finding a home for that animal. And when we can't find a home for that animal, we have to make a really tough decision as to what we're going to do. This time of year is one of the hardest times, because we're dealing with all of our rescues are full. All of our other shelters are full. And we're still having come in. I mean, this month alone, we had over 40 animals come in 1 week.
That's a lot.
And for a small shelter that is used to having 700 a year, to have 40 animals come in 1 week just overloads us. And we have to make really tough decisions at that point in time on how we're going to care for these animals and ensure that we are able to provide the best care we can for the animals that we have. Again, like we said earlier, I don't want to get in a situation where I've got so many animals I can't provide proper care for them, because then I'm no better than the people I'm trying to protect these animals from. Now, when I say that, I want to make sure and add in there, I feel that most of our owners are very good owners, and the ones that aren't, a lot of times it's just a simple matter of education.
Good point.
So if somebody ever comes in and says, I want you to put my animal down, whose choice is it ultimately? Are you able to make that call whether you're going to or not?
So when somebody brings an animal into the shelter, what happens, they can request that we put the animal down. But if you want specifically for this animal to be put down with no say whatsoever from me, that is going to be a veterinary service, and you would have to take him to a vet.
Okay.
When you bring him into the shelter, what happens is you're going to surrender that animal to the shelter. You're going to give me the reasons why you felt he needed to be put down, and I'm going to take an independent evaluation of that. A lot of times I'll consult with my staff, and we're going to figure out, is this really the best option for this animal? Is the quality of this animal's life at a point where it's deteriorating, or it is not at least staying the same on a daily basis? And if that's the case, yeah, we're going to probably agree with you, and we're going to make that same decision. There are times, however, when it comes in and we've got an animal somebody's looking at and they go, now we just need to put down. Well, this animal still has a lot of quality of life, and it's just, you got some really simple medical solutions that you can do. Sometimes people have brought them in because they just didn't have the money, or they didn't have the time to take them into the vet and work with them. Well, we get them into a different situation where you've got somebody maybe has more time that they can spend with them, and you can solve those situations pretty easily.
Okay.
But
And, I guess one question is maintaining the health of the shelter, because if somebody brings a sick animal in, or an animal gets sick, how do you maintain the health of all of, that's a lot of animals that you have in the shelter. If you're at capacity, how do you make sure everybody stays healthy?
That's a hard thing sometimes for people to recognize, is that in the shelter environment, we are focused so much on saving the group of animals that we are looking at this whole group of them, that sometimes the decisions we make that are best for the group are not best for an individual. The perfect example of that is when we have upper respiratory situations, and that's really frequent in our cats that are coming in. They have the closed up eyes, the snotty nose, they're sneezing all the time. Well, that's a very contagious illness. And if I bring that cat into the shelter, I'm going to get all of my animals sick. If I have a foster home that can take them, we're going to try to put them out in a foster home, because an upper respiratory infection is super easy to treat. It's like somebody having a cold. But if you have all of your animals getting it, it can be fatal amongst them, because it'll keep bouncing back and forth, it'll mutate. And so there's a responsibility to make sure that we're not doing activities that are going to encourage the spread of disease. So we're going to make those decisions, and it's something we sometimes refer to as shelter math, where we have to make a cold decision based on what is the best for the group of animals. If we go back to my super dorkism, we've got Spock, and it's the greater good. So,
but that makes sense in that kind of environment. It's not a home environment, like you said. You have to take care of the greater good of the animals. So.
That definitely is a hard time sometimes.
Well, fantastic. Everything I'm hearing is that you do care. I mean, this is a level of concern for the animals and their families and where they came from and where they can possibly go. That, I mean, really, there's a lot of attention and detail and care and concern that goes into this, and it takes a great person like you to be able to see that vision and carry it out. So thank you for that.
Well, I think one of the most interesting things is how many people out there think that I must hate animals. And I'm going, if I hated animals, I truly picked the worst job I could ever have.
That is true.
Because I spend 7 days a week caring for them, taking care of them, cleaning up after them, taking care of their medical needs for, the 1 hour a week I might spend going out writing a citation or something. And I just think it's interesting how many people are like, you animal hater, you don't do this. And I'm going, no, I'm trying to do what's better for everybody.
Let's change that perspective, Rexburg, because that's obviously not what's going on here. And this is the same story we heard before the show started, so it's legitimate. We've got about 10 minutes left.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about the DARE program?
I love the DARE program.
Okay.
The DARE program, I am part of a community policing division with the police department, which means that I am involved with animal control. I work with the guys that are the SROs, the school resource officers, and as part of that involves the DARE program. So we get to be involved with DARE quite a bit. We have a couple of really fun upcoming activities going on with DARE. One of them is actually next week. So we have on Wednesday the 24th, we'll be having a car wash over at Ray's on 2nd East, and that will be going from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. All donations made will go right to the DARE program. So you'll have officers out there. I'll probably be out there most of the day. I'll get a nice good suntan that day. Probably it'll be a nice red suntan. But we'll be out there. We'll help with cleaning your car after the car wash, maybe even helping with vacuuming and things of that nature. But a lot of it's just to support DARE. On August 2nd, a little while out there further, we're going to have our DARE night golf, and that is a blast if you've never been involved with it. However, with DARE night golf, the only caution I can say is you have to sign up early because that fills up so quickly. We only have 17 teams that'll do it. It's $300 a team, but it will fill up very quickly. And I think right now, if we have one spot left, you'd have to hurry up and call the police department and see, but we may already be filled up, and so... And we only put it out there about a week ago. Yeah. So that's one that fills up very quickly. As part of working with the police department and the community policing, just throw a quick shout out to Celebrate Youth coming up on the 13th.
That's right.
We'll be out there. We'll have the Operation Lifesaver train. So it'll be fun times like we've had in the past. So.
Wonderful, wonderful. So again, Wednesday the 24th at Ray's, and then we've got August 2nd, the night golf. So we've got reserve that. Wonderful. Those are great things.
Oh, yeah. Lots of fun.
Yeah, lots of fun in the community.
And we can't forget about my adoption event on Saturday. So we got that coming up. We got that coming up tomorrow, and I'm super excited about that one.
How many animals usually get adopted at those events?
So it depends on the event, but the last time we had 6 get adopted.
Okay.
And that's pretty good because some of the figures that people don't fully understand, remember we go back to I had 40 animals come in, in 1 week. Mm-hmm. Well, I anticipate, honestly, that I'm going to get 10 adoptions in a month. Is what I'm trying for. So for me to get
that's 4 months of inventory that came in.
Yeah. So for me to get 6 animals adopted out in one event, that's a pretty awesome day. Yeah. A lot of our animals, we send a lot of animals out to rescues when we can. We work with a lot of our local rescues. To shout out to Snake River Animal Shelter, who helps us out quite a bit. We've even sent animals as far away as Washington. Wow. We've Washington, Oregon, Utah. We really reach out. I have a couple of volunteers that will do transports for us, and absolutely amazing volunteers. They pack the animals in their van, and she will drive them wherever she needs to go, pays her own gas and everything. So.
I was just going to ask you that. That is amazing.
Where are you finding these volunteers? Because they sound like these volunteers sound like they're pretty vital to what you guys do.
Yeah,
how are you coming across these people? I could not run
the shelter without my volunteers. I mean, let me rephrase that. I could run the shelter without my volunteers, but it would not be the shelter we currently run. Right. My volunteers, for the most part, have come in and met me. this one that does one that does most of the transports for me. Well, one of them's my wife, and then I met her, and that's a whole different story. But the other one is one, she actually came in. She had brought a stray dog into us, and it was a time where she saw that we had a need, and she's been working with us for several years since then. And so a lot of just coming in, and when our volunteers come in, there's two things that we notice. There's some volunteers that come in that are interested in taking the dogs for a walk or playing with the animals. And that volunteer has a purpose. They're going to serve a function. But the volunteers that come in and they just walk in and they throw themselves down, they're like, whatever you need. Those are the volunteers I find that, man, we can use those volunteers like crazy. And I hope that none of them ever feel like we're using them up, because I want there to be good things for them to come out of this. So,
do you have a need for more volunteers right now?
I always have a need for volunteers, and especially the volunteers that are going to be self-motivated, that are willing to work on helping the animals. With our volunteers that come in and take them for walks, those positions fill up pretty quickly. And I have animals that are going for 3 or 4 walks sometimes. And what we look at is we want our volunteers to be involved in all aspects of the animal care. So this is going to be everything from coming in and cleaning the animal, to feeding them, to taking them for walks and socializing them. If we put one volunteer working like a batch of kittens, that batch of kittens gets everything it needs, but only gets exposed to the diseases that a person carries with them one time. Okay. And so at that point in time, we are able to have healthier, happier animals. They still get what they need, but they don't get all that exposure.
Now, if any of our viewers out there right now are wanting to volunteer, they want to get involved in the animal shelter, how do they do that? Who do they contact?
So probably the easiest way to get involved with help volunteering at the shelter is just show up.
Okay.
Our open hours Monday, Tuesday, and Friday from 1 until 5:30. And then on Thursdays, we're open from 1 till 4. Wednesdays and weekends, we're going to be closed. But show up, let us know that you're interested. And then let us know what you're interested in doing. Because sometimes the volunteer's like, I have an hour free tonight. I just want to come in and see what we can do. And we have projects for those volunteers. But if you want to work with the animals, we do have to put you through an orientation. That process ends up being about an hour. And so if you've only got an hour to give, we don't want to waste all of that on orientation.
Sure.
But if you're looking at doing a recurring type of thing, absolutely, let's get you loaded up. So,
remind me the address. Where are you located at?
So we are located at 490 West 4th North. However, if you put that into a GPS or anything, you're never going to find us. So we generally go by
find a pie.
400 North 5th West. So.
Okay.
But yeah, you put in the old address and you'll be at Frontier Pies. So.
Well, if there's any message or anything you could request from the community, or anything you'd like to say to the entire community while you're on today's show, what would that be? I'm putting you on the spot.
Oh, no, that's not putting me on the spot at all. I get to steal this from Bob Barker, and that is spay or neuter your pets, because I would not have near the number of animals I do if people would spay or neuter. If you're interested in kittens and you think that that is a process that you've got to be involved with, don't worry. I always have kittens, and you can come down and you can foster. You don't have to have your own. So.
And you guys are 2/3 cats right now.
Yeah, well, and that tends to be our yearly numbers. We're about 2/3 cats, 1/3 dogs.
Wow.
Which is actually opposite of what most shelters in the country are. Most shelters are more dogs than cats, but a lot of it has to do with this environment. Unfortunately, about half the cats that come in, sometimes it's a little less, but about half the cats that come in that are coming in as stray are through traps, and they're usually feral, so they're not going to be suitable for rehoming. So,
gotcha.
Just an oddball question real quick. Do you get any other animals other than dogs and cats? Snakes, birds,
We've actually got a rabbit and a hamster in there currently. So we had a couple guinea pigs. I've had snakes. I've had fish. I've had chickens, swans, geese.
Whoa.
We had an iguana one time. Well, not an iguana. We had a savanna monitor. Came in, a transient person had a couple warrants, and when the officers went to help him out, they found the warrants. They were searching through the bag. He didn't bother to tell them that. They come across this huge lizard that has a poisonous bite.
Ooh.
And so they are working with that. As soon as they got there, I got a call. It was like, I want to say it was like 9 o'clock at night, and I'm like, I'm at home, guys. And they called me in. I get in there. I'm like, wow, this was definitely something to call us in for. So we've had some interesting ones.
Okay, interesting.
Wow. Well, awesome. Anything else before we end the episode today that you'd like to share?
I cannot hit on that spay or neuter hard enough. That's going to be one of the only things that's going to ever make a difference in this. The thing we look at is trying to get some of the things changed so that we can move towards lowering the populations we have. However, what people have been doing for the longest time is this. We call it trap kill, and that's where you're trapping a cat. You're getting those feral cats. You bring them in, and they're not suitable for adoption, so they have to be put to sleep. If we took those same animals and you were willing to keep them on your property, you get them neutered, spayed, put them back out there, you're going to prevent more animals from moving in, and those animals aren't going to be having babies. So I know a lot of people aren't interested in that, but you get rid of those behaviors. Most of the reason people don't want them is because they're spraying, they're fighting. Well, if they're spayed or neutered, they're not doing those behaviors. So
interesting.
Awesome. Well, Officer Buzzell, we sure appreciate you coming on and explaining more of what you do, the importance of it, how it works, putting to rest, I hope, some of the misconceptions on how this thing really happens. And we appreciate your dedication, your concern, and the desire for more people to come help. You've got a need.
Yep.
So any of you animal lovers who would like to spend some time, please contact Officer Buzzell and go help. It'd be a great experience and something you love to do anyway. So thank you so much.
Well, and the other thing, if I got one last minute,
sure you do,
is that I throw it out there at the animal shelter. I mean, we also want people to look at us as a resource. I can help with animal training behaviors and things like that will stop you from having to bring them in. So if you're having an issue with the animal, give us a call, see if there's anything I can do to help you with training behavior first before you get to that point where you're so desperate that you feel you have to get rid of that animal. So.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Very good to know. Very good to know.
Well, Rexburg, thank you so much for joining us today. This does conclude Season 1 of the Rexburg Hustle and also Volume 1 of the book. Guys, we will be back in 2 weeks to start to kick off Season 2 of the Rexburg Hustle, which we're really excited about. And then one last thing, guys, we have to give a shout out to our tech guy, Zach. Today is actually the last day he's going to be with us. Zach is a major reason why this podcast exists. He is the guy who stands behind the cameras, the guy who clicks the buttons on the computers, the guy who has put all of this together. And sadly, Zach is leaving us. He's going back to Texas. We do get his younger brother now, which is good. So at least we'll still have some daily in our lives. But but anyway, Zach, thank you so much on behalf of all of us, the viewers of Rexburg. We really appreciate everything that you've done for the Rexburg Hustle. So thank you. And guys, again, come back here in a couple weeks. We're going to start Season 2, and hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Remember to spay or neuter. I've always wanted to say that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks. Yes, sir.
Thank you. We'll see you.
Hey.